Hi everyone, and welcome to an amazing training that I have laid out for y'all. The title of the training is How to Manage Your Money Like the 1%. This is going to be a full guide, and so hang out with me until the end. I think you're going to really enjoy what I go over today, and you're going to get a ton of value from the things that we cover. And so today's going to be a comprehensive guide on managing your money with wisdom and purpose, particularly biblical wisdom. This presentation will walk you through biblical principles of financial stewardship that can transform your relationship with money from chaos to confidence. I really just want you leaving here feeling that you have a chance to be at peace with your money and be in control of your money, and especially learning how to manage it in a way that honors God. And so whether you're just starting your financial journey or looking to refine your approach, these strategies have helped hundreds of individuals, if not close to 1,000 now, create both financial freedom and spiritual peace. And so just a heads up here, right? This is a full-length money management course for free that I'm giving you in this video, right? Over the past 5 years, I've built a 7-figure business and helped countless individuals and families experience financial peace and create financial freedom through the exact strategies I'm going to share here with you today. Now, this isn't going to be your basic financial advice video because I'm just not your basic financial coach or advice giver, right? And so I'm going to show you how to align your finances with biblical wisdom so you can experience both financial freedom and spiritual peace. And so this video lays out the exact step-by-step process you need to follow so you never have to watch another money management video again. And so I'm Justin Buonamo. I'm the owner and CEO of JFF, or Journey to Financial Freedom, which is a financial coaching company for the faith-based and ambitious. We've been around for a little bit over 5 years now. We've had almost 1,000 people go through our program called the Good Steward program. Right? Our ideal client wants to be a good steward of their money. So I'm going to teach you that here today. And so I'm going to help you transform your relationship with money based on biblical principles, right? And so our ideal client is somebody that is faith-based who feels stuck financially but wants to learn how to manage money in a way that honors God without all of that outdated, restrictive, fearful stuff finances usually brings on people. And so, we focus on the faith-based and ambitious. Though God doesn't want us to idolize money, He also doesn't want us to sit around and do nothing. And so we have to step up and play our part. And so the 1% money mindset, what do I mean by 1%? I mean the top of the top of people, like the people that manage their money the best, especially in a way that aligns with God and honors Him in the process. And so most people, though, manage money emotionally, right? I've definitely been there and I still do from time to time. I've got a long list of money successes, I also got a long list of money mistakes as well. And so a lot of times it's because I was managing money emotionally, right? Spending impulsively, avoiding looking at my bank account, and fearing finances. The top 1% don't do that, and they take a different approach. They understand that more money only magnifies existing habits, good or bad. So I tell people all the time, you cannot out-earn poor money habits, right? All more money is going to do is just going to accentuate your poor money habits, right? And so people often think more money is the solution. It could help in the short term, but if you don't have good money management habits, or you're not being a good steward of your current situation, you're most likely blocking yourself from attracting more. And if you do, you're not managing it to the best of your ability and have nothing to show for it. And so the key distinction is between chasing wealth and stewarding it wisely. Today, we'll explore a principled path that aligns with biblical wisdom and creates lasting financial health. I promise you, the key to a better financial situation isn't more money, isn't getting a raise, isn't landing this new opportunity. It's not this stock or this investment, though those things may help. The key to bettering your financial situation is stepping up and stewarding your current situation to the best of your ability. Because how can God bless you with more if you're not handling your current situation to the best of your ability? See what I'm saying here? So that's usually the biggest money block that people have. And so let's walk through that here a little bit. All right. So first, let's start with understanding true ownership, right? God owns it all. We're just called to be stewards or managers of what He has entrusted us with. And so that's not just money, right? Stewardship means manager or management, right? The better we manage something, the more that we're blessed with more. Or if we're not managing something to the best of our ability, usually God doesn't bless us with more, right? And so I'll give you an example, right? You probably wouldn't let your teenager take your car on the highway if they can't even back out of the driveway, right? That's not punishment, that's wisdom. And God's the same way, especially when it comes to money. And so understanding biblical perspective here, that like Psalms 24:1 says, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. This foundational principle shifts our understanding from ownership to stewardship, managing what ultimately isn't ours. It's like God gives us a plant, right? He expects us to take care of this plant, so one day when we go to give it back to Him, it's in better shape than when He initially gave it to us. That's stewardship, right? And that goes for everything in life, not just your money, right? And so the cultural contrast is the consumer culture says, it's mine, I earned it. Biblical stewardship says, it's entrusted to me to manage wisely, all right? So just a practical application here. Before purchases, just ask yourself, is this wise stewardship or emotional spending? This simple question transforms transforms your relationship with money, right? And so I have a client success story here. Her name, we're going to call her Sarah, right? I got to change her name, right? She once spent impulsively without thought, like just swipe, 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 right? After embracing stewardship principles, she began pausing before purchases, praying about decisions, and becoming intentional. Today, she gives generously, maintains savings, and experiences peace while still enjoying spending, but in a controlled, purposeful manner, right? My company and I are not the type of people that we're going to tell you just to cut everything out, just out of scarcity, just to cut everything out, right? Just for the heck of it, right? Like, we want you to spend your money, but in a calculated, controlled, and confident fashion. And when you can take this mindset shift here, right, that's when that stuff ultimately starts to happen. And so we love Sarah and her story and the hundreds of other client success stories that we have when it comes to people still spend their money after working with us, but they do it in a much more confident way and in a way that honors God, right? And so one of the biggest things, we have to build accountability systems, see, right? Like I always say, like, you can't improve what you're not measuring. Think about if you're trying to lose weight, right? What would you do at the beginning of that journey? Probably weigh yourself. What would you do every step of the way? Probably every day, weigh yourself, AKA track the metric that you're trying to improve. So when it comes to your finances, we must have systems that are in place to keep us accountable by measuring what's going on. And so the budget system that we teach our clients inside the Good Steward program only takes you 1 to 3 minutes a day to maintain to get best results. And that's all it should be. Finances shouldn't be quantum physics. It shouldn't be extremely strenuous. And if you're keeping it up with every day by popping open your bank account, looking at your transactions, plugging it into your budget, seeing what the numbers are saying and going about your day, it really should only be 1 to 3 minutes a day. Then a monthly update. What I mean by this is review each month, right? Because each month is different with different expenses and possibly different income setups, right? And so this month I made more money than I did last month, or next month I'm going to have more expenses or different expenses than I did this month, right? So you want to make sure that you track your budget monthly, and before each month, let's just say the 25th of the current month, review your budget for the next month to make sure, for one, it's set up in the first place, and for two, it's an accurate representation of what's going to happen that next month, right? So I hope that makes sense. And then a quarterly assessment, particularly with your financial goals. Inside of our program, we teach a budget, right, which is just housed in Google Sheets. That's what we'll go over here. Very simple. And also a balance sheet, which is just a fancy way of just saying, what are you worth versus what you owe? So what are your assets? How much money you have in a bank? How much you have in savings? And then what are your liabilities, right? Like, meaning, what do you owe? Like, what your mortgage, your car payment, your student loans, your credit card debt, etc. On that balance sheet, we want to make sure that we line up your top 3 financial goals that make most sense for you. And so worst case scenario, on a quarterly basis, you need to be reviewing this to make sure that you're actually making the progress you're going to make on those goals. And if you're not, you can pivot accordingly. And if life changes and your goals change, you can pivot accordingly, right? So we can't improve what we're not measuring. Right? And so we have to hold ourselves accountable. All right, real quick before we move on, tracking your finances demonstrates respect for what you've been entrusted with. As Proverbs 27:23 advises, know the state of your flocks. This means maintaining awareness of your financial position through regular monitoring. The majority of people's financial stress would just be eliminated if they just monitored their finances more, because it's very hard to feel at peace with something that you don't feel in control of. And if you're not regularly monitoring your finances, it's going to be hard to feel in control of that, let alone at peace with that. So effective tracking requires the right tools, like a simple Google Sheet, and monitoring key metrics, your monthly expenses, your income streams, your debt levels, your savings rate, or what we would call profit, like what is left over. Your financial goals should reflect your values, not just saving for retirement, but for freedom, family, and mission. Like, what are your values? And align your financial goals with them so you can actually live those financial goals and those financial dreams and have those values come to fruition instead of them being a down the road, possibly never type of thing. All right, let's keep it moving here, right? Work ethic of this successful, right? We don't want to play God, but at the same time, I always say we can't just sit around and eat Cheetos and sit on the couch and expect God to take care of the rest, right? Yes, we pray for provision, but when God opens the door, we have to have the faith and the work ethic to walk through that door, right? And so really over time, all I'm asking here, right, if you look at this, read off this screen, take your notes, take a screenshot, right? But Proverbs particularly, the Bible talks about diligence a lot, but particularly Proverbs. And side note, by the way, if you don't know who the author of Proverbs is, it is King Solomon. And if he was alive today, he'd be the richest person ever, right? And he'd be the richest person alive. If he was alive today, he would have a net worth of $1.3 trillion. Trillion dollars with a T, right? At this point of me shooting this video, Elon Musk is the richest person in the world with a net worth of 500 billion. So that means King Solomon would be almost worth 3 times as much as Elon Musk if he was alive today, right? And he's the author of Proverbs, right? And the crazy part about King Solomon is he didn't pray to God for wealth. He prayed to God for wisdom. And as a byproduct of becoming extremely wise, right, he became very wealthy. One of the pieces of wisdom, or two actually pieces of wisdom that he teaches in Proverbs is to work hard, right, and to be diligent, right, to be diligent with your efforts. And so when it comes to your career, when it comes to your relationships, when it comes to the way that you manage or steward what God has already given you, right, make sure you're being diligent, right, with those goals and not just being passive. Step up and play your part, right, and work hard and be consistent. Dreams are easy, discipline is rare, and that's why dreams usually stay dreams, all right? And so as we move on, right, Proverbs 2 right here, right, reminds us, do you see a man skilled in his work? He will stand before kings. This is because wealth isn't just about saving. It's about earning through diligent work and continuous improvement, right? I've had a very successful career. And even before my business, I had a really successful corporate career, right? But I knew God was calling me for more. And I kept working hard and being diligent to continue to go after that purpose that God had on my heart and what he created me for. That God rewards the diligent, he rewards the hardworking, especially if your actions are aligned with the purpose and what he's calling you to do. And they're glorifying him every step of the way. And so consider, right, one of my clients who invested in learning sales skills. This led to doubled income, eliminated debt. She increased her investments and expanded her giving. This biblical approach balances hard work with proper rest, recognizing both as essential components of a healthy financial life, right? I'm not saying pull all-nighters for no reason and give into hustle culture. Right? You must rest. That's God talks about that on the Sabbath, right? We must rest and recuperate. And at the same time, we have to step up and play our part. And this client, right? There's this quote that says, "You're not going to get rich working for somebody else unless you learn how to sell their product." Even if you're not even in sales, sales skills are an amazing skill set to have, right? Because all it's doing is, if you're doing it the right way and in a way that glorifies God, is just helping people be partnered with the solution to a major problem or goal that they actually have, and they're probably even seeking the solution for, right? Think about somebody that sells gym memberships. If someone's trying to get in shape, right, and they need to get healthier, and that's a goal of theirs, all that salesperson is doing is matching their problems and goals with an amazing solution. So anyways, let's keep going. Strategic budgeting framework. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a framework to follow, but I'm going to end with the disclaimer, what I believe is most important, right? And so the only thing in the Bible that God says to test him on is tithing, literally. Besides that, it's like blasphemy to test God. But go through the Bible, and I believe it's in Malachi, where God talks about testing him. Like basically he says, tithe and watch how I bless you, right? And so give first, right? The tithe is 10%. It's the first. I know a lot of people are like, I wait till the end of the month to see what's left over. Well, I get that's logical, but sometimes things that are logical isn't always biblical, right? And giving what's left over as a tip, not a tithe, right? It has to be first. It has to be uncomfortable, because that's what faith is. It's saying, we trust you, God. Or if you're already tithing, honestly, in full transparency with my situation, I've been tithing the same amount for a couple of years now, and it's actually become comfortable. It doesn't stretch me anymore. So I've been praying to God to give me a number that would stretch me to continue to show my faith, all right? And the next thing is 50% for needs, right? Again, these are just frameworks to follow, like housing, transportation, and essentials, right? This just makes sure that you're allocating funds in a way that you'll actually have money left over here, which we'll get to in a moment, right? 30% to wants, discretionary spending aligned with values. Again, I'm not the company or the person that's going to tell you to sell your car and scooter to work and sell your bed and sleep on the floor just to pay off your debts faster and never look at the inside of a restaurant. I kind of think sometimes that stuff is silly. Don't get me wrong. Sacrifice for strategy is always a great thing, but sacrifice out of scarcity, that ain't it, right? And so you want to enjoy your life a little bit. And I promise you, it's very possible to make financial progress and enjoy your life or live your life at the same time. It just takes you to be on the right system with the right person teaching you the right things. And so the last thing here is at least 10% of your money left over to go towards goals, whether that's paying off debt, whether that's building an emergency fund, whether that's investing, whether that's going towards a down payment on the house, right? Whatever your goals are, at least make sure that 10% is left over each month and going towards that, right? And so effective budgeting requires a structured framework, right? I'm not saying all of our clients follow this exact percentage, right? But the idea is that build a budgeting system where you can obviously have money allocated towards necessities. You can give in a manner that you want to give, right? And how God's calling you to give, right? But most importantly, that you have enough money left over each month to be allocated towards your goals to accomplish them in a time frame that is okay with you, right? So simply put, I'm just going to make up an easy number, right? If you want to build a savings account to $5,000, right, and you want to do that in 10 months, you would need $500 left over each month to then add up to $5,000 over the next 10 months. So you have to figure out what your financial goals are and how fast you want to accomplish them. And then just make sure that there's enough money left over each month to accomplish them in the time frame that you desire. Right? And so some common pitfalls include lifestyle creep, increasing spending with income, and or excessive sacrifice from a scarcity mindset. We got to find the happy medium. All right. And so the key is ensuring enough remains each month to accomplish your financial goals in a timely fashion using tools like Google Sheets or budgeting apps just to stay organized. Right. Again, it's one thing to set a goal. It's one thing to set a budget. It's another thing to follow it daily and to make sure that you're on track with the goals that you set. So that's my take on budgeting there. All right. Strategic debt management. Right. Not all debt is bad. There's a massive difference between good debt and bad debt. Bad debt is buying things that you don't need with money that you don't have at a high interest rate with no plan on how to pay it off, aka credit card debt, right? And sometimes maybe even personal loans. Good debt, though, is leveraging other people's money at a low cost or a no cost to increase your wealth, your value, and your opportunities, right? A lot of my business coaches that I've hired that have helped me have an amazing impact on my clients and an incredible income from my family, I utilize good debt, right? 0% APR credit cards, right? Or some type of strategic good debt to get access to them, right? To increase my value, my opportunities, and my wealth, right? And so, some simpler ones are, mortgages for real estate. I'm not a believer in buying your house in cash. You could do worse things with your money, even if you could afford to do that. I don't know who can afford to buy their house in cash, but you could do worse things with your money, but you have to ask yourself, what is the best use of my funds, right? And so a lot of times good debt allows you to hold on to your funds for a better use while leveraging somebody else at a low cost, right? And so Proverbs 22 warns that the borrower is the servant to the lender, highlighting the potential dangers of debt. However, not all debt is created equal. The key is distinguishing between harmful high interest debt and strategic low interest debt that helps you build wealth. Rather than worshiping debt freedom as the ultimate goal, focus on using debt wisely when appropriate. But the biggest thing though, no matter good debt or bad debt, always have a clear payoff plan for any debt you take out, ensuring it serves your long-term financial strategy rather than hindering it. So when it comes to bad debt, high interest debts, right? We need to figure out which one is costing you the most, right? And put together a plan on how you can pay that off as fast as possible, right? And a lot of times I tell people just pay off your high interest debt before you start investing in the stock market, right? It's not, there's some gray area there, right? You can invest in the stock market while having high interest, bad debt, but let's just say your credit card debt's at 25% interest. I can't guarantee you anything in the stock market, but I can guarantee you that you're going to save 25% if you pay off that credit card debt. Does that make sense? And so the biggest thing is figuring out which one costs you the most. And it's not always the highest interest one, right? Let me explain. Let's just say that you have a credit card with a $5,000 balance at a 25% interest rate. And you also have a credit card with a $20,000 balance at a 15% interest rate. Though this first one has a higher interest rate, 25% of 5K is a heck of a lot less than 15% of 20K, right? So figure out which one is costing you the most and go after that one first, all right? And when you get out good debt, make sure obviously you can afford the payment, right? And you're aware of all the risk, and then you're creating a payoff plan for it. Because I've seen some people before leverage good debt. A form of it is 0% APR credit cards, right? And they open it up, they utilized it for a good purchase, but they had no plan on how to pay it off. They got to the end of the 12 months and they're like, oh gosh, I don't have these funds. I don't know what to do. I'm going to get charged a bunch of interest, right? That doesn't have to happen if up front you create a payoff plan for it. Right? That's my take on debt, right? I don't think all debt is bad. I actually leverage a lot of good debt, but very responsibly. And I do my absolute best to avoid bad debt, if not pay it off as fast as possible. All right. A couple of more things here, right? I am a big believer in an emergency fund, right? So think about a savings account as an overall umbrella, right? You could save for just about anything, right? A car, a house, a vacation, or what I argue to be your most important savings account, which is an emergency fund, which is just a pot of money set aside in a readily accessible account that you can access, not if, but when emergencies pop up. And so I would say there's some details on here. Definitely follow what this is saying, right? But I would say no less than 3 months, no more than 6 months. Anything less than 3 months is a risk. Anything more than 6 months, I think, is a waste of money. Anything more than 6 months of emergency funds should be invested instead of just sitting in a basic checking or high yield savings account, right? And so 3 to 6 months of what? Not your income, your actually just your expenses. Go through your budget and figure out what would be your monthly expenses if an emergency popped up, right? So if you're going through and you're like, okay, an emergency popped up, I think we'd have to at least cover $5,000 in expenses. Let's say that you pick that you want to have 4 months of emergency funds. So 4 months times 5,000 equals $20,000, which would be your emergency fund number. All right. And so Proverbs 21:20 teaches that the wise store up choice food and olive oil, emphasizing the importance of preparation for future needs. Your emergency fund serves as this storehouse, protecting you and your family from financial emergencies without derailing progress. Right. I always tell people, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, right? It's very selfish of you to not have an emergency fund, especially if you have a family, because let's just say something pops up. $1,000 expense, $2,000 expense, right? Even a $10,000 expense, right? Your family is going to stress unnecessarily because you failed to plan. Like the Bible says, it's not a matter of if, but when something happens. And we want to be able to prepare for that, right? Selflessly. And so it also is pretty selfish too, in a good way, where it's like you will sleep a heck of a lot better at night if you got $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in the bank or whatever your emergency fund number is. And so, if you have to, just start off small. Start off with $1,000 buffer just to prove to yourself that you can put something in there and it can stay there. Then build towards covering the 3 to 6 months of essential expenses. Keep these funds in a high yield savings account for accessibility while maintaining some growth. And so a high yield savings account right now, at the time of me shooting this, will give you between 3 and 4%. Your normal basic checking or savings account, if you're lucky, is going to give you a 0.5% on the money just sitting there. High yield savings account, zero risk for about a 3 to 4% return on investment, right? So let's just say your emergency fund number is 30,000. I would say keep 10,000 in your basic checking account just to act as a buffer in between bills and paychecks, and put the other 20 in the high yield savings account so you can actually have it stored somewhere else, making a little bit of money, but fully protected. And so that's my advice on an emergency fund, right? And so, usually, I say the foundations of goals are managing debt well by paying off bad debt and leveraging good debt, right? Building an emergency fund, and then buying a house instead of renting. Those are usually my foundational goals I tell people to go after, all right? And so let's keep moving. So after that, I actually call those 3 goals the green lights for investing, which means once those things are done, then you can start investing. It doesn't mean that you can't start investing before those things are done. Again, there's gray area, and that's honestly in full transparency why you have to work with a financial coach or a financial expert so they can help you build a custom strategy based off your unique situation. But again, I don't know your unique situation, so I'm going to talk in general terms here. And the idea is, because I can't guarantee you anything in the stock market, but I can guarantee you that you're going to save 25% if you pay off your credit card debt, right? I can't guarantee you anything in the stock market, but I can guarantee you that you're going to be really happy when an emergency pops up and you've got 20K in the bank, right? But the idea is you only have so much leftover money each month, like we talked about earlier, right? And let's just say you have $500 left over each month. You can take $250, put some in a credit card debt, and take $250 and put some into investing, right? Called a hybrid model, if you will, right? And so on the idea of investing, right? You want to start as early as you can. I know that's difficult if you have some of these other goals that you're working on, but the earlier the better, because this beautiful thing called compounding interest. It's how your investments grow. So let's just say, I have $10,000 invested and I'm making 10% off of that investment. That would be $1,000 that I made this year. That $1,000 of interest gets added to the $10,000 that I initially invested. Now I have $11,000 in the investment account, right? And so now I'm making 10% off of $11,000, which is more than 10% of $10,000, right? And so then the next year, that interest, which would be $1,100, is now added to the $11,000. And so now that's how compounding interest works. Right? The interest that you make is added into the amount that you have in the investment account, and the percentage that you're making now becomes larger because, again, 10% of 11K is a heck of a lot more than 10% of 10,000. Right. And so you also want to learn how to diversify, right? And especially when it comes to the stock market, right? Diversification helps what's called hedging against risk, right? So if all of your eggs are in one basket, right? Let's just say you take all of your money and you invest it all in Apple stock, right? Let's just say Apple stock goes out of business. You're kind of out of luck, right? You put all your eggs in one basket, right? But when you diversify your investments, particularly in the stock market, across many different things, if 1 or 2 of those things are down and the other 3 or 4 up, then you're still up in totality, right? And so real estate are also great investments. Another thing that I didn't put on here is businesses, though. So really, when it comes to investments, right? At this point in time, I don't feel comfortable advising on crypto. I'm not saying it's not a great asset. It's just gambling at this point because of the historical data that we have with it. But when it comes to your investments, right? You have the stock market, you have real estate, or you have businesses. right? And so that's either starting your own or investing and or buying in other people's. And so, when my wife and I were at corporate jobs back in the day, right, we invested a lot of money in the stock market, right? But when we started this business, we stopped investing in the stock market for a little bit to put our money into this business because it was going to make us more money and a lot quicker than the stock market. And so you got to ask yourself, which vehicles do make most sense for you? Stock market, real estate, or businesses? And it could be a blend of both. Now, at this point in time, I'm invested in all three, right? So one of the biggest things that helps is automating your investments, right? When I first met my wife years ago, when we were just dating, I helped her create an investment account and I automated it by just having the $500 pull on the first of every single month. Years later, we got married and we went to go combine our investment account. And I was like, oh my gosh, babe, you have that much money in there? And she was like, yeah, it's crazy. Ever since you set it up just to be automated and come out on the first, I learned to live without it and it just added up over the years. So it was just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful example of that, right? And the same thing with compound. Let time multiply your wealth, right? So there's some takes on the investment strategy, but it's very unique to each human being. And again, that's why you need a financial expert in your corner to help you figure out what makes most sense for you and actually act on it, right? Because time is money. And if you're like, oh, I'm going to learn this on my own, or I'm going to do some research, or I'll figure this out one day. Every moment that passes by, I promise you, you're costing yourself so much money, right? And so consult an expert, especially one that has your best interest in mind, that can help customize something to you to get you best results, not just general results. All right. And so real quick, the parable of the talents teaches that God values multiplication of resources, right? If you don't know the parable of the talents, go Google it after this. You're going to really see that God values multiplication. So successful investors understand this principle and apply it through consistent early investing that harnesses the power of compounding interest. Begin with accessible options, maybe like index funds or Roth IRAs, potentially expanding into real estate or business investments as your knowledge and capital grow. The most important factor, though, no matter what you're investing in, is consistency. Automate your investing to remove emotion and ensure regular contributions regardless of the market conditions or personal feelings, right? The biggest mistakes made in the stock market are based off of emotions. And a lot of times that emotion is fear, right? When you understand the stock market, when you understand investments, of course, it's going to go down from time to time. It doesn't just go like this, right? It does go up over time, but it goes up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, but ultimately going up over time, right? So I hope that helps with some investment strategies here. All right. So last couple of things here, legacy building, right? I want you guys to pass on not just numerical wealth and materialistic wealth to your kids, but emotional wealth, right? There's a lot of beautiful words on here, but I'm going to speak a little bit from the heart here, right? I want you guys to pass on, yes, material and numerical wealth to your kids, right? By having trust in place, by having wills in place, right? By having insurance policies in place, right? By making sure that you're making smart investments with your money, right? So you can leave your kids generational wealth. But if I had to pick between material wealth or financial wealth and emotional wealth, like having a good relationship with money, viewing money the right way, having good emotions around money, right? Like I always say, your external wealth is just a reflection of your internal wealth, right? And so I'd rather have you pass that on to your kids, right? But the good news is you don't have to choose. You could pass on both. The point being is like pass on good beliefs around money to your kids. Teach them that money's not the root of all evil, like what that actually means. Talk to them about how God actually wants us to steward money. Talk to them about what the beautiful tool money actually is and the opportunities and doors it'll open up for them. And then pass them on a whole bunch to be able to manage with that wisdom that you gave them. All right. And so Proverbs 13:22 reminds us that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Consider this inspiring story of a client, we'll call her Sarah as well, who began teaching, this is true, her 16-year-old son a couple of years back about budgeting and investing. He's 19 years old now, and he's already accumulated $20,000 in investments. He follows a budget daily, right? And he also has an emergency fund of $15,000 as well, right? That's a 16-year-old that is now 19. That's in 3 years, right? And she did that because she took what she was learning in our program and turned around and taught him. And now he's going to be set for life in both of these buckets, numerically and emotionally. And so last, I know I keep saying this, I just want you guys to hang out with me because this is so super valuable. So purpose-driven financial planning, right? It's really just about aligning your finances with God's calling, aligning your finances with God's purpose over your life, and just understanding that if you truthfully understand what God is calling you to do with money, He doesn't want you to idolize it. He doesn't want you to worship it, right? That's where money goes wrong, right? That's where people start to use it for evil things, right? Is when they replace God with money and act as money is God, right? And so I always say that the key is in the character, right? If you're just a good human being and you're doing your absolute best each day to grow in relationship with God, he's going to refine your character through that building of the relationship with him. And then as you start to acquire more money from these principles and from being a good steward of your money, which allows God to actually bless you with more, all that's going to do is just going to magnify that beautiful character that you have, right? So the key is in the character, right? And God doesn't want us to struggle financially, right? If you are constantly struggling financially, right, you know other Christians that are, it's probably just because they haven't done what God wants them to do with their current situation and then bless them with more. Like I said before, if a 16-year-old can't back a vehicle out of a driveway, you're probably not going to let them drive it on the highway. And that's not punishment, that's wisdom, because they haven't proven that they're ready for that yet. So the biggest financial block people mostly have is that they're not stewarding their current situation to the best of their ability, right? They're sitting around wishing and hoping for God to fix things, but they're not stepping up and playing their part. And God is holding back blessings that he has for them because they're just not playing their part yet. They're not stewarding their current situation to the best of their ability, right? And so I love the quote that says, blessings and opportunities follow obedience, especially when it comes to finances. So Matthew 6:33 instructs us to seek first the kingdom, right? Establishing a priority that transforms financial planning, right? When you seek first the kingdom, again, God's going to refine your character and tell you what he wants you to do with your money and give you the resources and the motivation to step up and actually go play your part, right? When we recognize that finances are a means to fulfill a purpose rather than an end in themselves, our entire approach shifts, right? I love the quote that says, money's a terrible God, but an amazing tool, right? Or a lot of faith-based people mix it up, or they use God as a means to money instead of money as a means to God. Sit with that for a moment. All right. And so purpose-driven financial planning begins with understanding your unique calling and designing your financial life to support that mission. This alignment brings clarity to decisions and cultivates contentment, regardless of your account balances. Your resources become your tools for impact rather than symbols of success, right? My pastor always says, are you glorifying God, bro? And so you ask yourself that in every move that you make with your finances. All right? And I promise you, by the way, it's very possible to be a good person while being rich, right? You can have a lot of money and still be a great person. The key is in the character, right? And go to God to refine that character. All right. So the Good Stewards system integration, right? And so my program inside of my business is called JFF, or Journey to Financial Freedom. And we have a financial coaching program called the Good Steward program. And so we talk about foundational building. Like I'm huge on building foundations, right? Because like the Bible says, build your foundations on stone, not sand, right? Or if you want to build a castle, you got to lay it on a strong foundation. So we got to fix the foundation first. Start with budgeting to gain control and peace. It's really hard to feel at peace with something that you don't feel in control of. And when you're running a proper budget, right, you're going to feel in control of your money and at much more ease with your money, right? While developing a healthy mindset around money and strategically eliminating bad debt. So our foundations that I teach, implement a simple budgeting system, right, that empowers you with your money, puts you at peace with your money, right? We want to build an emergency fund. We want to eliminate bad debt and leverage good debt. And this one's a little bit looser, right? But we want to purchase a home instead of renting, right? If you're going to pay for a roof over your head, I promise you one day it just makes much more financial sense to buy that home instead of rent. All right. And so after that, we have the foundations laid. We can start looking into investments. We can start looking into ways to increase your income. We can start looking into ways to start even living your life more, right? And so start there, and to add into the foundational, right? Start praying on how you can give, right? Pray about tithe. This is a prayer that God loves to answer, right? So when I first started, right, tithing, I was a little confused about it. I didn't know how to, didn't know where to. And I said, God, teach me how to tithe. Show me where to tithe. Give me a number. Guide me that way. That's a prayer he loves to answer. So lay the strong foundations, right? By implementing these systems, and then shift your mindset around money, right? God doesn't hate money. He hates greed, right? God doesn't hate money. He hates when we idolize anything else but him. And unfortunately, here on earth, one of the main idols that we replace God with ends up being money, right? And so he wants us to utilize money in a beautiful way. He calls us to be a good steward of our current situation, right? And then he'll bless you with more, right? And so our comprehensive 7-step framework integrates all the principles we discussed in this cohesive system. This approach combines practical tools with biblical wisdom, creating a roadmap for financial transformation that makes most sense for you and your family and aligns with your values. And so success comes from having the right tools, mentorship, community, and strategy all working together. And that's why our program has become such a great success over the years. When these elements align with sound biblical principles, The result is both financial prosperity and spiritual peace, the true mark of a good steward. And I mean this in the nicest possible way. If you could have figured it out by now, right, on your own, you would have, right? And if basic financial advisors or accountants or your uncle that works in the financial industry was enough to get you best results by now, you'd already be there and a company like mine wouldn't exist. Right. Just years ago, I realized there was gaps in the financial industry, even for people that had their money in order and had a financial advisor. Nobody was there for you on the day-to-day money issues, goals, and stresses. And especially nobody was there for you to teach you how to do this in a way that aligns with biblical wisdom without all that outdated, restrictive type of fearful and shameful feelings that finances usually brings on you. All right. And so here's the next steps, right, for financial transformation, right? You got two options. It's kind of like I tell people, right? You can either take this information and try to implement it on your own. But like I said before, if you could have figured it out on your own by now, you would have. And if nothing changes, nothing changes, right? Or you can partner with myself and my team inside of the Good Steward program. We have 143 active clients in this program right now at the time of me shooting this. And that says something. The majority of the revenue that we do each year is word of mouth from our current clients who just had an amazing experience and went and told their friends and family about us. And so, you could try to apply these principles independently, learning through experiencing, gradually developing your financial system through trial and error. Right. But I'll always like to tell people our services are the services that'll cost you more money to not have than they would to have. Because when you work with us, we're going to accelerate your financial progress, right? Through financial coaching that's specifically designed for you and your faith-based values and your unique situation, right? You could go and Google and try to put together a general financial plan, but there's a massive difference between a general financial plan and a customized one. And that's how you go from getting decent results to getting optimal results, right? And so partner with us. But the choice is yours. Whether you choose independence or guidance, the information in this training has the power to truthfully transform your financial future when applied consistently. But why do people pay for coaching? For one, customization of the implementation. Two, accountability to actually implement this stuff and the support along the way to stay consistent, and then also to pivot if life changes, which commonly happens, which can throw your finances off and the goals that you have, and you need to learn how to pivot to still make best results. And so the Good Steward program offers expert guidance from someone like myself and all the coaches inside of the program who's already walked this path, and we have helped hundreds and close to thousands now transform their finances. Our team will walk with you, I promise you, every single step of the way, helping you manage and grow your money in a way that honors God without the outdated, restricted, and fearful feelings finances usually brings on people, right? And so if you're somebody that is faith-based, that feels stuck financially, that wants to learn how to manage their money in a way that honors God, get rid of the debt that's stressing you out, actually build a savings that sticks around instead of just feels like it gets wiped out every single month, right? And finally feel in control and at peace with your finances, then this program might be the program for you. I always say, don't pray to God for blessings and then ignore him when he comes knocking. So if you've made it this far, this is probably an answered prayer to the financial stresses and goals that you've been having. And so click the link below. You're going to book a call with one of my amazing team members to talk about the Good Steward program. I know I'm biased, but this logo is really cool and the experience is even better. There'll be a link below for you to click. My team is amazing. They're all incredible human beings, faith-based like you. And the beautiful part is the majority of them, at one point, just were clients who crushed this program, love the values, love the mission, and they're walking proof of what this program can do for you. And they love to help other people get in on this opportunity, right? So to click the link below, book a call with one of my amazing team members. And we would love to see you on that call and be able to help you finally make the financial transformation that you know God is calling you to step up and be the kind of steward that you know that you're capable of being, of the blessings that you have, to attract, sustain, scale, and share your wealth with as many people as you possibly can. Thank you for sticking with me through this training. I really hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you soon.